Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Nation's Pastime in the Nation's Capital. I'm your host, Andrew Snaith, here with my co host, James Higgins, and we are here with another pre recorded weekly show for the YouTube channel and Spotify soon. And we have some interesting topics we want to tackle tonight. A little bit of a different plan this week. We're going to be doing a short episode tonight and also another one later in the week. So definitely be sure to follow our Twitter. That's at NatPastimeCap, and look out on our YouTube channel as well so you can catch that show along with this one. So thank you all so much for tuning in. James, I think we should start first and foremost with what happened over the weekend out in the West.
Yeah, absolutely. The San Francisco Giants have been playing great baseball all year. Really, honestly, they've been the most surprising team in baseball. Like when you look at the expectations coming into the season, obviously you have the LA Dodgers, the reigning World Series champions. You have the Padres who made all these moves in the offseason, signed Tatis to the monster extension, and nobody really gave anyone else in that division a fighting chance to even compete for a wild card spot, let alone the division crown. And right now, as we enter, as we as we night, the Giants are 34-20, and they have the best record in the National League, the second best record in all of baseball, with the Rays having one more win in the win column. Unbelievable what the Giants have done. They took 3 of 4 from the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium this weekend, capping it off with a thrilling win on Sunday. It was a great series. The final scores for these series were the Dodgers won the first game 4-3. Then the Giants won 3 consecutive to cap off the weekend, 8-5, 11-6, and 5-4, with a thrilling win on Sunday, holding off a late rally from the Dodgers.
Yeah, we've been saying all season long here on the show, are the Giants for real? Are they real? Are they going to keep this up? And honestly, we're heading into June now. Like you said, they're 34-20. It seems like they might be here to stay for as long as they can. They're hanging right there with the Padres, right there with the Dodgers. And, it's just really impressive what Gabe Kapler's team's been able to do.
Absolutely, and I think it starts first and foremost with Kevin Gausman. I mean, he's 6-0 with 1.4 ERA. He had another win on Sunday. He has a 3.6 B WAR. I mean, if it wasn't for Jacob deGrom, he or Brandon Woodruff would be the NL Cy Young. I mean, what Gausman has done this year, he's finally reaching his peak potential. From all what could have been in Baltimore to now what is transpiring in San Francisco. He's been very effective mixing his pitches in the zone. He's locating the ball really well. He's pitching with solid velocity. He's doing everything that he was once supposed to do with the Orioles as a top pitching prospect, and he's finally working out. And you can see his full maturation. Awesome to watch.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's very cool to see what Kevin Gausman's been able to do. Also, something of note, he signed a 1-year deal this past year. He's going to be a free agent and join a class of starting pitchers that is very loaded this offseason. And if he keeps pitching like this, you're talking about a pretty big payday for a guy, even though he's in his 30s.
Oh, absolutely. He's got a 10.6 K per nine. He's pitched 70 and 2/3 innings. His ERA is 270. He's got a .8 whip. I mean, everything lines up. It's not just the peripherals. It's not like he's just getting lucky with, getting out of jams and whatnot and getting lucky on. He's doing everything right this year, and he's a huge reason as to why the Giants are succeeding. And then obviously you have Buster Posey, you have Evan Longoria, you have Brandon Crawford, you have Brandon Belt. How about the resurgence of Buster?
Oh,
This is a
man,
guy who
Buster
sat out
Posey's been
2020.
amazing.
He sat out 2020 due to COVID, obviously, as his family adopted twins. So he decided to spend that time with his family. And this year he's come back, and this looked like the Buster Posey of old. He has 10 home runs. He's hitting .323. He's driven in 21 runs. He's a 10.09 OPS. I mean, this is prime Buster Posey.
You see, and for a guy that a lot of people thought might have been a borderline Hall of Famer, if he keeps this up this year, he really has proven everyone that he is a surefire Hall of Fame catcher.
He's the
It's been
best catcher of
amazing
his
to watch him.
generation. He's the best catcher of his generation. I mean, you look year in, year out what he's done, what he's accomplished. Look at the back of the baseball card. I mean, this is another banner season to add to an already Hall of Fame worthy career.
Another noteworthy name you got to call attention to on the Giants is Steven Duggar, man. He's been absolutely unreal for them.
Absolutely. And it's the thing is with the Giants is that we can talk about Longoria, about Posey, but they're getting contributions from everyone because they're not just a team of one superstar. Obviously you have Posey and Longoria who were stars in the past, but they're getting up there in age, and they're going to have to rely on everyone all year long. And Steven Duggar this year has done exactly that. For the Giants. He's hitting 308. He's driven in 11 runs. He's hit 3 bombs, and he's got a 911 OPS so far this season in 28 games. The Giants getting contributions from everyone up and down the lineup.
Absolutely. Staying in the West there for a second, of course, we're recording the show on Tuesday night here, and some unfortunate news as over for the Padres, Fernando Tatis Jr., who has been scorching hot since coming off the injured list, unfortunately has been pulled from the game early. James, what does this mean for the Padres if this is another extended stint on the IL for him?
If this is another extended stint on the IL, I mean, they're just going to have to try to continue to tread water at the shortstop position. Obviously, if they lose, he's had a 1622 OPS since coming off the IL. I mean, that's absolutely insane what he's been able to do since coming off the COVID IL. But if it's another extended trip to the IL, and obviously we don't know the extent of this injury, he got pulled from the game for precautionary reasons. He could be back in the lineup tomorrow night or on Thursday. But if this is another extended trip, they're going to have to tread water at the shortstop position. And depending on how long he's out, they might have to go trade for a veteran infield bat. Obviously, like, they're not going to suffer as a team. They have so much firepower, but this would be his third trip to the IL this year. Obviously, the second one was the COVID-19 IL, so that's different than getting hurt. But you don't know how that shoulder is going to hold up through the end of this year, and you always want to have protection and insurance in case Tatis does go down, for an extended period of time, because he is one of the great talents in this game, and he's arguably the face of baseball. But he spent a lot of time on the IL for such a short career so far.
Yeah, and I mean, as we've talked about on the show here before, a big concern considering the monster deal that they signed him to. There's no questioning that he is one of the most talented, if not the most talented person in the majors right now, and amazing and fun to watch. But it's going to be the injuries which determine whether or not this contract's going to be a good idea.
Absolutely. And I don't think this Tatis injury is serious. I hope it's not. But at the end of the day, the Padres are going to need a healthy Tatis to win the World Series. Like, they are talented enough to get to the playoffs and whatnot without Tatis. But if they're going to make noise and make damage in the playoffs, you need Fernando Tatis at his best. And the Padres are right there with the Giants. They're right now they're tied for first place in the NL West with the Giants. But if they're going to be in it for the long haul, they need a healthy Tatis. What's going to happen? I don't know. And hopefully he can stay healthy. I mean, you have Machado, you have Will Myers, who had an unbelievable weekend in Houston with the game-winning home run on Saturday. And obviously Tatis with an unbelievable weekend in Houston, the home run on Friday onto the train tracks. Then on Saturday, the game-tying home run in the ninth inning, a 3-run shot on the train tracks to tie the game before Will Myers eventually hit the go-ahead home run in extra innings. I mean, that was an incredible series down in Houston. And the Padres became the first team to ever score a run in the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th inning on Saturday. I mean, the first team ever in baseball history to score at least one run in each of those innings.
Yeah, that's remarkable that was actually the first time I remember seeing that, and kind of not believing that it was true. But yeah, definitely the first team to ever do that. And no question that they have a lot of firepower, but I agree 100% with you, James. If they're going to win the World Series this year, like a lot of people think they may, they're going to need Fernando Tatis Jr. healthy and in the center of that lineup. Speaking of other young guys throughout the – oh, sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say one more thing. Like, obviously, we've harped on Tatis a lot tonight and in past shows, but since coming off the IL, besides the 1622 OPS, he shot himself up into a lot of offensive categories. I mean, he's now second in home runs as Vladdy Jr. took the lead tonight, but he's second with 16. He's right up there in average. He's hitting 310. He's got an OPS over 1,000. I mean, before he came back from the IL, he was struggling when he went on the COVID IL, but in these last two and a half weeks, he's really shot himself up there with a 1622 OPS, coming through in clutch situations and doing everything for the Padres. And he's really showing why he's the face of baseball and he got the mega extension that he got.
Absolutely, yeah. And what I was going to say there of keeping with the young talent in the game tonight, two more of the very young superstars making some noise. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Ronald Acuna Jr. both hitting their 17th of the year. That's tied for the major league lead. James, they just keep they keep doing it, and especially for a guy like Vladimir Guerrero, it's really great to see finally breaking out. We talked about this on last week's show, but he doesn't seem to be letting up. He seems like he's here to stay, and he's going to be a superstar of this next generation of baseball.
Oh, absolutely. And the question is, how soon is Vladdy going to win that first MVP? Is it going to be this year? Is it going to be next year? Is it going to be in 2 or 3 years? I mean, he's going to win one at some point, and he's one of the best hitters in baseball. And watching his maturation has been awesome because we saw him dominate the minor leagues in 2018 and through the first couple weeks of 2019. And his debut in 2019 was one of the most hyped debuts I've ever seen. Like I remember watching that game live. I watched that whole game on MLB TV just to see Vladdy hit, and obviously it coming to the league, it took an adjustment period. People forget he was 20 years old when he got called up. Like he was the most hyped prospect since Bryce Harper, but it takes time. It takes time. Playing in the major leagues and hitting in the major leagues is very hard, and he's showing now why he was the most hyped prospect since Bryce. He's having a 2015 Bryce Harper type season with the numbers he's putting up so far.
Yeah, you hope he can keep that up, especially like you said, the most hype since Bryce Harper, and is absolutely living up to the hype at this point.
17 homers, 45 RBIs, and 1104 OPS.
Yeah. Yeah, and a big reason why the Blue Jays are I mean, still there. I mean, you got three very good teams.
If they weren't in the AL East, they would be in the playoff conversation much more than they are right now. I mean, look, right now they're 6 games back of Tampa. They're 4 games back of Boston, but they're only a half game back in New York for third place. And right now they're only 1.5 back for that second wild card. So while the division might end up being out of play, and while it might come down to Boston, Tampa, and New York as well, Toronto's going to be in the thick of things all year. And if they weren't in the ultra competitive AL East, they would probably be even thicker into that playoff discussion and possibly in one of those playoff spots.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget they were a playoff team last year. It might have been a very short stay in the postseason, but they were indeed, and they have a lot of talent on that team. And unfortunately, you're right. If they weren't in that AL East division, we might be seeing very different hype around the Toronto Blue Jays right now.
Absolutely. Another guy who I wanted to talk about on the home run leaderboard, who I still don't think gets enough love for what he's done this year, and he's really come out of nowhere and been really honestly, I think in terms of a player, the best surprise in baseball is Adolis Garcia. He's second in the league with 16 home runs. He's doing it all for Texas on a team that really just they don't have that much going for them, but he's got 16 home runs. He's got a 907 OPS. He made a great catch the other night to rob a home run in Seattle. I mean, he's another Cardinals farmhand that is bounced around, gone on another team, just like Randy Arozarena, and has really proven their worth for their team.
Yeah, I mean, if you would have told me that he was leading the majors in home runs by June at the beginning of spring training, I probably would have asked you who the heck he was. But yeah, he really is doing it all for Texas, and he's making it baseball to watch down there in the Lone Star State because, like you said, not a whole lot else going on.
Absolutely not, and he's going to be their one All-Star for sure.
Oh, without question, without question. Now, here's a question for you: do you think he somehow wins a fan vote to be a starter, or is that going to be a last resort one All-Star pick, like you said?
I don't think he would be a last. I mean, look, if he's second in the league with 16 homers, he's got a 907 OPS. Like that's not a last resort kind of thing. Like he's not just making it as a pity all-star vote at that point. But I don't think he will be a starter because, it comes down to being the popular vote. And I'm sure even though Trout's hurt, he'll get it. You talk about other outfielders in the American League, Aaron Judge, we know how popular he is. And he's having a season worthy of obviously representing the Yankees in the Midsummer Classic. So I'm sure he'll get there. And then for that third spot, obviously with Mookie Betts not in the American League anymore, you could say it's more up for grabs per se. But I mean, when you look at the talent in the American League in the outfield, not only I mean, look, it's going to be tough for anyone. I mean, you talk about Mitch Haniger, he's having a season worthy of the All-Star game. I'm not talking about for the fan vote. I'm just talking about in terms of outfield spots. I know we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but Austin Meadows, he was a starter in 19 for the American League All-Star team in Cleveland. I guess Adolis Garcia could end up winning a fan spot, but I don't think that will end up happening. I think we'll end up going to someone who's much more popular and potentially Alex Verdugo, just because the Red Sox have such a large fan base. If he's able to somehow get voted in, I mean, it could go to a lot of guys, I think.
Absolutely, I agree 100% with All those points indeed. Moving on here, we should at least mention briefly events that transpired over the weekend regarding the Atlanta Braves outfielder Marcell Ozuna. James, it looks like he's not going to be playing baseball for a little while, and it is not for the best of circumstances either.
Yeah, it's absolutely terrible what went on with Marcell Ozuna this weekend. That type of behavior is not acceptable in baseball or in society at all. And, whatever actions are taken, they will be well deserved, and hopefully the justice system does its due, because the report was absolutely terrible. And if found guilty of those, which it looks like he very much was guilty of those, he should not ever play Major League Baseball again.
Yes, absolutely indeed. Just mentioning that briefly there, of course, considering the fact that Marcell Ozuna was just given a 4-year, $60 million deal, I believe, by the Atlanta Braves this past offseason.
And one thing, and all I want to say on that is that, unfortunately for the Braves, they cannot void his contract. And that, obviously that there's some language in the contract there. I'm not really sure the specifics of the language, but Ken Rosenthal was the first to mention that yesterday. If they were to release him, they would have to eat 53 million. Just, obviously, that if he's found guilty of these, releasing him would be doing the right thing, but it is unfortunate there's no way for them to get out of it considering what he did. I mean, how is that not a breach of his contract?
Yeah, I was reading that as well. Of course, a report from Rosenthal there. Something about the language does say that it cannot be voided. They're going to have to pay him either way. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Atlanta Braves. I mean, obviously a bat that you'd like back in your lineup. He was injured when this happened. He was going to be missing a good amount of time anyway, but, someone that I'm sure they were counting on to get back in the middle of that lineup behind Freddie Freeman and carry them hopefully to another playoff berth. Not going to be the case now, and who knows the next time we'll see him in a Major League Baseball uniform, if at all.
Yeah, and the Braves are now they're going to have to trade for an outfield bat or call up Drew Waters, to an even greater extent, because Ozuna was going to miss 6 weeks anyway, but now he's most likely shelved for the season, and potentially his career with all this. They're going to have to do something to address the looming bat in the outfield, because Christian Pache is still in the IL. Obviously, he's there for his defense, and his bat isn't quite there yet. Drew Waters, right now, the number 28 overall prospect in baseball, and the Braves' number 1 overall prospect, is tearing it up in AAA right now. So he could potentially be a guy where, if they like his maturation, they like his development, if they give him a couple more weeks down there, he could end up getting his number called to Atlanta really soon and making an impact. Right now, the Braves are 25-26, and they're 3.5 games out of first place, trailing the Mets. But their one saving grace is that they play in the NL East, which, as we mentioned numerous times, is not a good division. So it's really going to come down to what team can have a hot month and just build a sustainable lead. And if Drew Waters can help them do that, then he'll probably find his way going to Atlanta sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. Marcell Ozuna, a former member of the Miami Marlins, in the same outfield as the guy who we're going to talk about next on the show, and that, of course, Christian Yelich. Christian Yelich played in his 1,000th game of his career this past weekend in Washington. And, James, I believe that you have a pretty interesting comparison between him and a couple Hall of Famers that we want to talk about.
Yeah, so Christian Yelich played his 1,000th career game yesterday against Detroit. He played obviously the majority of that with the Marlins, but he has spent the last 4 seasons with the Milwaukee Brewers. So through Christian Yelich's first 1,000 career games, he's hitting .295 in his career with 152 home runs, 527 RBIs, and an .867 OPS. Now, compared to some other Hall of Fame outfielders, he stacks up very well to 4 other Hall of Fame outfielders: Andre Dawson, Jim Rice, Reggie Jackson, Mr. October, and Dave Winfield. So first, comparing him to Andre Dawson. Andre Dawson has a career 2.8 this is all through their first career 1,000 games. So obviously not their full career, but this is just a good projection of what we can expect from Yelich going forward, assuming he can stay healthy. So through Andre Dawson's first 1,000 career games, he had a 289 career average with 161 home runs, 567 RBIs, and an 825 OPS. So Yelich beats him with a higher OPS, only 9 less home runs, and a higher average. Jim Rice had a 306 average, 209 homers, 713 career RBIs, and an 892 OPS. He is the only guy that beats Yelich in all 4 of these categories. Reggie Jackson was a 268 career hitter through his first 1,000 games, so Yelich is up on him by almost 30 points with 205 homers, 587 RBIs, and an 868 OPS, only 1 point better on the OPS than Christian Yelich. And then finally, Dave Winfield had a 285 career average, 139 homers, 568 RBIs, and an 824 OPS. So Yelich beats Winfield in everything except RBI. So when you look at his numbers compared to those four guys, Christian Yelich is on a Hall of Fame track if he continues his career these next 10 years like he did these first 7.
Absolutely. Really striking comparisons there just of how good Christian Yelich has been his entire career, and especially since joining the Milwaukee Brewers. They, of course, locked him up to a deal recently, and seems to be, as long as he can stay healthy, very much so worth it, as he could very well be onto a Hall of Fame career.
Absolutely. And just going back to Yelich briefly, what he did in 2018 and 2019 was unbelievable. And obviously it was unfortunate that 2019 was cut short due to the injury. And I think if he played that last month of the season, he would have won the MVP over Cody Bellinger. I mean, if you look at the numbers of each of those two from that year, Yelich had pretty much the better numbers in the majority of the offensive categories. And the ones that he didn't, I think he would have beat out Bellinger had he had that, those extra 3 weeks in September. But, in 2018, he was an at bat away from the Triple Crown. Like, he came up in game 163, and had he gotten a hit, which with men on first and second, which would have driven in a run, he would have overtaken the lead for a batting average and RBIs. Like, he could have won the Triple Crown with one swing of the bat. But in 2018, when he did win the National League MVP, he led the league with a 326 average. He had 1,000 OPS. He had 110 RBIs and 36 homers. And then in 19, when he was the runner-up for MVP, he hit 329 with an 1,100 OPS. He had 97 RBIs and 44 home runs, and he was very close to becoming the first 50-30 player in MLB history, as he stole 30 bases in 19. No player in MLB history has ever hit 50 home runs and stolen 30 bases in the same season, and Yelich came very close to becoming the first player in baseball history to do that. So if Christian Yelich continues to do what he's done over the second half of his career, he's going to be in Cooperstown. And it's been great to watch his maturation from, being starting out in Miami, being more of an average guy to turning into a power guy toward the end of his stay in Miami to really becoming just a complete hitter when he went to Milwaukee.
Yeah, it seems as if a lot of people may have forgotten who Christian Yelich really was, after the disappointing season he had in 2020. But he is definitely a name to continue to keep watching. He's showing us why this year, now that he's healthy after his brief stint on the IL, and hopefully keeps it up for the Brewers, who definitely still have a chance of winning that division.
Absolutely. And the only thing I want to say about Yelich is that he's only played in 22 games this year because of the back injury. He needs to stay healthy. He needs to stay healthy for them to have a fighting chance.
Yes, absolutely. He is a key piece of that team, I think, to no one's surprise. And while they did tread water and do relatively well without him, they need him if they're going to win that division and overtake the Cardinals, who have been very, very good this year.
Two quick things on the Brewers. Brandon Woodruff, if Jacob deGrom wasn't pitching, he probably would be the NL Cy Young this year. It would be between him and Gausman. Woodruff this year, he's 4-2 with a 1.27 ERA and 71 innings pitched, and he struck out 83 with a .69 WHIP and has a 3.7 B WAR. And I was at a start on Sunday against the Nationals, and he was dotting up everything. I mean, fastballs, breaking balls, everything was located extremely well. He's been doing that all season. He's got 7 consecutive starts of 10 or more strikeouts. He and Corbin Burns are the huge reason why the Brewers are still in contention, because of the amount of time Yelich has missed. But Brandon Woodruff, I mean, what an unbelievable start to the season he's had. And then obviously Corbin Burns, he missed some time on the IL. He's 2-4 with a 2.24 ERA and 51 2/3 innings. He struck out 81 and has a .72 WHIP. So those two, I mean, Burns obviously season with the most consecutive strikeouts without a walk, but I mean, what Woodruff has done all season has been unbelievable.
Yeah, again, talking about pieces that the Brewers are going to need if they want to actually win that division, it's those two guys in the top of that rotation who have done wonders this year and hopefully continue to do that. Really could be either one of those teams. And hey, let's not forget about the Cubs, who had a big series this weekend as well.
They had the best record in May in all of baseball. They were 19-9. They had a huge series this weekend. They beat the Padres yesterday. Patrick Wisdom just got called up, and he's hit 4 home runs in his first 7 career games. They're up on the Padres right now 4-3. But this past weekend, beating up on the Reds, they took 2 of 3 at Wrigley. They had an up and down April, but they went 19-9 in May, the best record in baseball. And you talk about a team that relies on veterans. Obviously, we talked about the Giants, but I mean, the Chicago Cubs really rely on veterans to stabilize their order. And so far, they've gotten a lot of production out of their veterans, especially in the month of May. I mean, you talk about Chris Bryant, Javi Baez, Ian Happ, Jock Peterson, Anthony Rizzo's on the IL right now, but those four guys. Those are the guys who stepped up in May. In May, Baez hit 281 with 7 homers, 16 RBIs, and 855 OPS. Bryant hit 327 with 5 bombs, 13 RBIs, and a 961 OPS. Happ in May, after a brief IL stint at the end of April into the beginning of May, hit 292, 5 homers, 13 RBIs, and a 971 OPS, almost identical to Bryant's stat line. And then Jock Peterson really came on in May, hit 314, 3 homers, 13 RBIs, and 841 OPS. And overall, Bryant is really anchoring their offense. I mean, again, he's showing why he's a top 10 to 15 player in baseball when he's healthy. This year, he's got 12 home runs. He's hitting 317. He's got 36 RBIs. He's doing it all for the Cubs. And now that they've really had a resurgence in May and find themselves back in the thick of things in the NL Central, it makes it highly unlikely that they're going to trade anyone at the trade deadline.
And, that's really interesting because we've been talking on the show for the past 2 months about, will Chris Bryant be traded? Will Baez be traded? Where are they going to go? Where are the best spots? And like you said, after the May that they just had, there's a good chance that they don't trade anyone. I mean, there's a legitimate chance that once again, just like the Brewers, that they could overtake the Cardinals and win this division still. It's still very early. They've been playing amazing, and it's something that could easily happen.
And even if they don't overtake the Cardinals, don't sleep on them for getting a wild card. I mean, you never know. You really never know because the NL is so competitive with all those second place teams. I mean, you look at the 3 teams in the NL West. Obviously, you could say that the Dodgers, Giants, and Padres will take all 3 of those spots, but don't sleep on the Brewers, Cardinals, or Cubs in the NL Central, the division, to take one of those wild card spots, especially with the way the Cubs have had a resurgence in May, and now this could really open the door for them to get a long-term extension done with Chris Bryant, something that they had not gotten done and that they kind of just balked at and were willing to take it into free agency. Now maybe it'll pick up the intensity and they'll really try to nail something down early in the offseason.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've talked on here multiple times about it's probably going to be one or the other when it comes to trying to extend them both. But if they can go on a nice little run here like they have, maybe make the postseason, maybe get deep in there, that gives them real incentive to try and keep both of them. And, a lot of people always are making the jokes about the Wickets and all them being out of money in Chicago. But, hey, you know what? They might have to get some spare change together and keep these guys if they're going to go on another run like this, because this is the type of winning and offense that we expected to see and the dynasty that we expected to see when they won in 2016. And, keeping that core together for as long as they can was what we thought that they would do. And that might still be what happens. You never know.
Absolutely. And one more thing on the Cubs. How about that Javi Baez play on Thursday with the Pittsburgh Pirates?
Yeah, we definitely have to talk about that. If you haven't seen this play, please do yourself a favor. Go ahead and search Cubs versus Pirates play. It's going to be the first result. I guarantee it. Javi Baez decided that instead of running to first, he would run backwards to home plate after hitting a ground ball to the first baseman. The first baseman decided for some reason not to tag the bag, but to chase him back to home. And, the rest is, I guess, history, as they say.
Yeah, Will Craig was the first baseman for the Pirates, and if he had just touched first base, the inning would have been over. But instead, he chased Baez back towards home plate. Wilson Contreras scored. But if they had still gotten the force out at first base after that, the run wouldn't have counted. But the Pirates threw it away, and Javi Baez got the second base.
Oh, man. I've only watched baseball for give or take 16 years of my life, but I think it's fair to say that might be one of the worst plays in history.
That is the worst play I've ever seen, and probably one of the worst plays in MLB history. I mean, how does that happen? That just can't happen. Little leaguers do it better than that.
I don't think I'd see a little leaguer make a mistake like that. That's the thing. It really was unbelievable.
But also, how about Javi Baez somehow getting out of that? They call him El Mago for a reason. And as poor as that was for the Pirates, I mean, credit to Baez for somehow getting out of that.
Yeah, I don't honestly know what he was thinking, go ahead and running backwards, but and I surely don't think that was his plan all along to hope that the first baseman chased him back to home plate. But, hey, it ended up working out for him. They got a run out of him, and he went to second base. So, yeah, you're very right. El Mago for a reason.
Absolutely, absolutely. And speaking of the Pittsburgh Pirates, they've obviously had a dreadful season. They've had a dreadful number of years. You know, they had a little bit of a run with McCutcheon there, but besides that, they really haven't had much going for them. But one thing they do have going for them this year is the performance of Adam Frazier. Adam Frazier right now, he's their second baseman. He leads Major League Baseball in hits with 71 hits. He's fourth in average with a 336 average. He's got an 881 OPS. He's got 19 doubles. I don't think many people saw Adam Frazier leading the league both in hits and in doubles on June 1st. But obviously, we talk about all-star representatives. This will for sure be the Pirates all-star representatives. And it really just is a testament to what Adam Frazier has done. I mean, look, he's been in Pittsburgh for a while. He's been through a lot of downs there. He's been there since 2016, so he has not had a postseason appearance. And he's a career 280 hitter, but he's finally putting it together this year. And he'll probably be a trade chip at the deadline, because why would the Pirates hold on to anyone when they can get something of value back for Frazier?
Yeah, why would they do that when they could get something of value back, like Chris Archer for Austin Meadows and
Tyler Glass now, yeah.
yeah. No, but honestly, I 100% agree. Frazier will probably be traded. That was something we've talked about on here well before he was having the season that he has been having. But it really has been remarkable. He's, like you said, leading the league in hits, fourth in average. He's one of the reasons to go in PNC Ballpark right now. And come July, I'm not really sure if there's going to be any.
Yeah, absolutely. And one more final thought overall on baseball this week. What do you think about Joe West and the substance on the hat, and how do you think that will impact guys going forward? Because Major League Baseball said they would take a stand on this stuff this year. They hadn't really done much until this now with Joe West and the confrontation with the Cardinals on Wednesday, and Mike Schilt obviously defending his guys and getting upset. And I think one difference that we have to make is that there's a huge difference between using rosin and sunscreen and pine tar and then using the concocted substances that really make the baseball move. The rosin with the pine tar and sunscreen combination, that's when you see pitchers go to their hats or go to their forearms, that's usually what's on there, and that's used just to get a better grip on the baseball. And hitters usually say they don't mind that, but the concocted substances is what really makes the baseball move. It's what makes the RPM just tick up, and it's what makes the baseball look like a wiffle ball. Obviously, Jared Carrabis and Dallas Braden were talking on starting nine earlier this week, and it's something that Major League Baseball, will they take a firm stand on this, or will this just be kind of a one and done thing with Joe West?
Yeah, especially interesting to me about that situation, like you said, was how Schilt really, really defended his player there. Giovanni Gallegos was, of course, the pitcher. His quote, "First of all, Gio wears the same hat all year. Hats are cure dirt. Hats are cure substances. Did Gio have sunscreen at some point in his career to make sure he doesn't get melanoma? Possibly. Does he use rosin? Possibly." And, he went on and on. It's a great quote. Go ahead and read it. But he was not happy with the confrontation between Joe West and Giovanni there.
Yeah, absolutely not. And it's tough because every manager knows that some of their guys use this. So it's like they're not going to go rat on another team, because then that puts their own guys in the doghouse. So it's not like it's something that they're going to want to bring to the umpire's attentions, because that'll just make it worse for their own guys.
Yeah, no, I agree. Definitely part of the reason why he was going so strong on that. But it's going to have to be something, like you said, that gets cracked down on, because it's having a massive impact. Like you said, looking like a wiffle ball up there. It's going to be interesting to see if this was a one and done thing, or if this is something that MLB and the umpires really are going to start enforcing harder.
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, it comes the day after Joe West umpired, I believe, his 5,000th game.
Yes, that is correct. His 5,000th game.
Hey, the Baltimore Orioles have won a baseball game. They just beat the Twins to end their 14-game losing streak.
14 games there. I believe the Diamondbacks ended theirs as well the other day, right?
Yeah, they ended theirs on Sunday. It was a 12-game losing streak. So two very long losing streaks have come to an end in the recent days. Baltimore's coming to an end tonight with a win over Minnesota, and Arizona's coming to an end on Sunday with a win over Cincinnati.
There is hope once again in Birdland. That is fantastic. Good for them. No, but yeah, it's been a tough one. It's been a tough one for both those teams. There's a lot of potential talk around whether or not the Diamondbacks in particular, of what pieces they may sell off at the deadline. I've seen a lot of talk around Ketel Marte. The problem here is he's, correct me if I'm wrong, under team control for another 3 years. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense if they were going to go and get rid of a guy like him at the deadline to me.
Yeah, but when are they going to compete? And I know we talk about not giving anyone a chance in the NL West, but if the Giants, like this year, really for the Giants, they're playing with house money because they had zero expectations and they have a solid farm system led by Joey Bart, the number 2 pick in the 2018 draft. Like they have a solid farm system. So even if they end up fading and not making the playoffs this year, anything that they do positive is house money to go towards the future. So that's just another team that is added to the loaded NL West. Like, what do you do if you're the Diamondbacks or the Rockies? You're kind of in a hopeless situation.
Yeah, I mean, you really are. I mean, you saw the Rockies trade their superstar this past offseason. I guess the logic is why not do the same if you're the Diamondbacks? Not a whole lot else going for you there, and especially with three teams that seem to be that are going to be very competitive for a very long time in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be
Well,
tough. It's going to be tough.
it is. It's going to be very tough indeed. We're going to get to the end of the show here real quick, but one final thing I wanted to talk about before we let you all go here. How about the Tampa Bay Rays and the best record in baseball? The run that they went on has been absolutely insane. It did come to an end this past week, but they've continued to win after that.
15, hey, they've won 15 of 16. I mean, yes, their 11-game winning streak came to an end, but they've won 15 of 16. They had a 2-game sweep of the Philadelphia Phillies this weekend, despite Zach Wheeler pitching very well for the Phillies against Tampa Bay. And right now, Tampa Bay, they just lost tonight. Clint Frazier just hit a walk-off home run just now.
That's a big one for the Yankees and trying to stay competitive in the division there. That seems to be getting away from them.
Yep. No, but that's a big one for New York. They're now 4.5 back at Tampa. It's a walk-off 2-run home run for Clint Frazier, not a walk-off 3-run homer there. They're 4.5 back of Tampa. They're, I believe, 2.5 back of Boston. New York, they finish up with Tampa tomorrow, and then they have 3 games with the Red Sox this weekend. So a big weekend for New York after an ugly series against the Detroit Tigers. The Tigers sweeping the Yankees in Detroit. Just a great series overall for the Tigers. And, I know we've touched on a lot of the bottom feeders in this show for negative reasons. But how about the Tigers? How about the Tigers sweeping the Yankees and remaining pesky? And how about Casey Mize and Spencer Turnbull? The seasons that they both had. Casey Mize had a rough start to the season, but he's really turned it around his last 6 starts. And obviously Spencer Turnbull with an ERA under 3 this year, a no hitter in Seattle a couple starts ago. The future is bleak. The future is bright for Detroit. Things might be bleak right now, but the future is bright for Detroit.
Definitely a big sweep this weekend of the New York Yankees. A lot of Yankees fans understandably upset about that. I think I speak for a lot of people, at least fans of 29 teams, when I say that seeing Yankees Twitter erupt in sadness is a very joyful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great. It's great to see. But they had a really ugly weekend in Detroit. Their base running was terrible. Tim Kirkchin mentioned on Baseball Tonight the other night how he's writing a piece about how poorly the Yankees have been on the bases this year, and some of the base running in Detroit this weekend was terrible. I mean, Gary Sanchez had a terrible miscue on the bases on Sunday afternoon. They just haven't been played fundamentally sound baseball. But obviously a big win tonight with the walk-off home run for Frazier. Big game tomorrow in the rubber game of the series, and then 3 games against the Red Sox. The first time the Red Sox are playing the Yankees this year. Can't believe it's June 4th and they haven't played each other once. But the AL East is ultra competitive this year, and these teams are going to be playing each other a lot, and we'll see who ends up coming out on top. But obviously, credit to Tampa Bay right now for the run they've gone on and overtaking first place from the Red Sox.
As always, a lot of exciting topics to discuss here on Nation's Pastime and the Nation's Capital. It's great to be able to do these shows in the middle of the summer here with a lot of great stuff going on every single day. You never know what's going to happen. Thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. That's going to conclude tonight's show. 2 quick notes before we sign off, though. Number one, we said we were going to have that inbox set up for you to do their voicemails for the show. Unfortunately, we're having some technical difficulties with that. We're going to explore a couple more options, so look out for the next show later this week to announce how you can send in your questions and comments that we will play live on our shows, and then we'll be featured on the recorded shows. It might involve something more than just leaving a voicemail. We might be doing sort of an email inbox kind of thing, but nevertheless, look out for that either on our Twitter or on our later show this week. And speaking of that later show, expect that around 2 or 3 days after this one is up. And once again, going to be on our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at NatPastimeCap to know when that goes live. James, anything else before we go ahead and close it off here for another couple nights of baseball before we talk again?
No, we've just got an exciting few nights of baseball. I think obviously things are starting to get serious. Obviously, a lot of people use Memorial Day as the first marker to really look at the standings. One interesting note that I saw on one of the ESPN broadcasts yesterday, I don't remember which game it was, but 24 of the 30 teams between 2015 and 2019 who were in first place on Memorial Day ended up making the playoffs, which is 80% of the teams. So, I mean, that's if you're in first place on Memorial Day, more likely than not, you'll be making the playoffs either as the division winner or, worst case as a wild card. But, you're pretty much bound for postseason baseball if you're in first place. Exactly 1/3 into the season, 54 games.
With that said, that's going to about do it for tonight's edition of Nation's Pastime in the Nation's Capital. Thank you again so much for listening. Look out for our later show within 2 days of this one on YouTube, and have a fantastic rest of your night.